right, we'll get started. Call to order. The governing board meeting was called to order at 5 p.m. We all rise for the flag salute. Ready, begin. There's echoes. Roll call. Let it be known that all governing board members are present. We have approval of agenda. Have a motion? Motion. Second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Approval of minutes. We have a motion to approve August 9th regular meeting minutes.
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Furdos. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Hearing session. The audience members may request to address the board on an item on or off the agenda. Per board bylaw 9323, individual speakers shall be allowed 3 minutes to address the governing board on each agenda or non-agenda item. Citizens are asked to keep their written comments to 250 words or less so that they may be read within 3 minutes. The board limits the total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. The total time allowed for public comment shall be 30 minutes. Dr. Miramontes,
We have no public comments.
no public comments. All right, moving on to governing board comments. We'll start with Ms. Castaneda.
Hi, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great afternoon and a great Monday, start of the week. I just want to say how happy I am to see all the pictures and videos of the first week. It's gone so well. I know my boys were nervous starting in a new school, but everything has gone so well for them. They love it. They're happy to be in class, in person, seeing their teachers, seeing their peers, and just having some kind of just normal after the past year. But they're excited. I'm happy to see everything. I'm happy to know that all the other schools have had a great first week. So hopefully let's keep it that way. And I also do want to say thank you to Dr. Ramon Miramontes, Mike Madu, Dr. Cantu, and Elsie, Sari, Lori, Mr. Harrison, and Simonowski for being there on the first day and just supporting our staff and our schools and being there and guiding our students. And it means a lot to the staff, and it means a lot to the parents seeing you guys out there. So that was really great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, Mr. Furdos.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully everybody's doing well. It's been, these last 2 weeks, they've been very active with a lot going on in our schools in preparation for the 21-22 school year. So first off, I just want to welcome all students and staff and families back to our school sites and our offices. I was very happy to see the students back on campus and smiling. I know my T-Care was excited to, just walk out the house with her backpack and start school. She left mom crying at the door, what kind of bad, but she was so excited, so I can't blame her. But overall, the first week of school was successful. I would like to thank all of our school sites for doing an amazing job decorating their schools and for rolling out the red carpet to all of our students and families that were welcome back to our campuses. I thought that was a neat little touch. I know Mr. Bagger had a Back to the Future theme. So the DeLorean was a, eye stopper there. So that was really neat to see. The students felt, welcome, and they loved that moment. And also, I'd like to take a moment to thank our SR officers, Genner and Officer Lopez, for making sure that our families were accounted for and safe throughout the pandemic last year and this summer. So I know I know it's very impactful in the roles that they do and they're serving our community. I know our families appreciate everything that you guys do for them, educating them and making them feel safe and secure and giving them those resources that they're lacking, but because of you guys are able to guide them in the right direction. So I really do appreciate the collaboration and partnership with you, with the officers here and the city of Buena Park. So thank you very much. And then lastly, I just want to congratulate Dr. Miramontes. I know he was celebrated last week from a wide variety of prominent figures here in the state of California. So once again, congratulations for being Superintendent of the Year. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Ms. Shed.
Well, I want to thank the leadership team for letting me participate in their retreat. I really enjoyed it. And I was on the last week, I was at a self-defense for women and women's issues at the Source. And our Assemblywoman, Sharon Cook Silva, invited all the elected officials to come up and speak. So I took that opportunity to say how excited I was that we were welcoming our students back into the classroom full time. And I wanted to also thank our district staff and the counselors, all those people who went out to add extra support in transitioning our students to coming back into the classroom full time. So that was exciting to see. And I know the principals and the teachers and all that staff appreciated that extra help, those extra smiling faces to welcome our students. So thank you again.
Ms. Ahmad.
Thank you. Same here. I know everyone's kind of excited. It was the first week of school, and it was just so nice seeing the kids walk into the schools and the buildings. It was just amazing. The funny thing was that I feel like all the parents are now kindergarten parents because we all want to sit there and watch and make sure they get into the gate. And it used to only be the kindergarten parents, and we'd make fun of them and be like, oh, and now all of us are back at that gate, trying to see, the kids as they walk in, if they keep their mask on. And so it has caused a little bit of congestion. I know I talked to Dr. Miramontes about it. I noticed it at Emory, and I saw it at a few other schools too. I know that it probably might have a little bit to do with, all the parents dropping off, but maybe also it's the first time all the kids are in school after we did the reconfiguration. So I was talking to Dr. Miramontes about looking at maybe possibly seeing, what we can do to just relieve some of that congestion, because, it got a little better today because I know they added a few more minutes for the parents to be able to drop off. But we need to, that was our decision, and we need to make sure that, the schools have the proper tools to deal with that, because, it can get really bad when the parents are upset at each other. As for I'm looking at my notes over here. My other issue I wanted to talk about was just maybe have a second look at class sizes. I was approached by a few parents saying that the class sizes are, bigger than, and we're not above, contracts or anything, but maybe with the COVID situation, we do need to just, look at the safety of the kids and our staff and, see wherever we have those classes that are not probably more than 30, I would say, we're kind of pushing it with having that many kids in the classroom. Also, I wanted to discuss, I can't even read my handwriting, but I guess that's it for now. Just, just all these issues that are coming up, if we can all work together, just help us get through, the first few weeks of school until things can get back to normal. Oh, I remembered my other, my son actually didn't go to school today because he woke up saying that his throat was a little itchy. And so I went through the, precautions, and I'm just urging everyone, all parents that are watching, that if you do feel like maybe with your son or daughter is not feeling great, to take precautions, because we really want the kids to stay in school as long as possible. And so when we all, be careful, we can help each other. That's it.
Thank you. As always, my colleagues up here always share all the important good stuff. So I'll reiterate those and say I heard a lot of great things. And last time I've mentioned my theme of the year is Ohana, our family. And I'm glad to see, and I heard a lot of great things about the sites being a family. And family doesn't mean always positive. There's always the negative that comes with it. And I think families deal with it together. And so I want to thank all the sites for pulling that off the last first week. Whatever issues came up, it's still, they got through it together, and the district as well. So I want to throw that out there and share that I feel the family. I think we've been on this journey for 3 years for a couple of us. And every year I feel more and more proud and seeing the growth of where we're heading. And I think that's a very positive sign. And I want to throw that out to everybody out there, because everyone played an essential role in that. And so just to recap, just want to share that in a three-year mark, I've seen so much development and positivity. So I appreciate that through the midst of craziness, through COVID. through all of that, we've done a great job. I was reading the Friday report. I was excited to see that there's an Apple professional learning specialist coming on. So I want to give a shout out to Dr. Cantu and Mr. Magbu and Ms. Centeno for getting that going, because it's going to be a great way to continue to add more specialty and learning and growth for our teachers, especially with a great program like Apple, which good or take it. Sometimes people think they're evil empire, but they also serve a good purpose. But I think it's going to be great for our teachers and students for innovation and creativity. Again, I was at the City Hall celebration for Dr. Miramontes, and I would have to also bring it up, like Mr. Frutos mentioned, just a proud feeling we got with the support that came out to support the superintendent, which he attributed it to everybody here, the whole district. And definitely Buena Park School District is on the map. I think people know who we are if they didn't. Small but mighty, like we always say. And it was evident when you saw every representative, if you're a politician or not, but people recognizing the superintendent for all his work, as well as the community relationships that were built from himself to the staff to our community. So I was very proud to see that recognition. And I don't know if I've ever seen that before. So I want to appreciate him and the staff and everyone in the district for their hard work and continued efforts that I can see will be coming. So as a starting off the year, I don't want to be sappy or anything, but just want to say I'm very proud. I'm very happy to see the growth that we've made from top down everywhere. So I appreciate everyone. It's like I love everybody kind of speech. So I'll say that I love everybody sometimes. Anyways, Dr. Miramontes.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. Yeah, we've had a great first week. I've been to all our schools, and it's wonderful to see our families walking onto our campuses. And it's just as happy to see kids in classrooms, and students on the playground. Everybody's wearing masks, and kids are being safe about it. Teachers do an incredible job. We're working on the 3 R's, reconnecting with our students and families. As Mrs. Ahmad had mentioned, some of our families that haven't been there in over a year and a half, like our second grade students were only there for half a year before we closed down. We're reestablishing routines for students and for families. I happen to be out on the morning duty, just watching, because there have been some issues with traffic at many of our sites. And the third R is really enjoying our students and building those relationships. Already, Mrs. Ramirez had sent me the launching of Writers Workshop last Friday, which was fantastic. We're 4 days into it and they're launching their writing units. It made me feel really, really good about where we're going and what we're doing. But speaking of routines, as I mentioned, all the schools, are dealing with traffic issues right now. And two or three of our schools sit on cul-de-sacs, which makes it a little bit harder as well. The good thing is we have great partners at the Buena Park City Hall and the police station. I called Aaron France, city manager, last week after I got a call from Principal Lennicky saying it's a little bit crazier than ever. So our staff reacted rather quickly. Mike Magbu met with the transportation department, said, can we look at other pickups? So the students that we have on certain buses aren't all maximizing the opportunity to ride on the bus. Even though we have safety protocols in place where we disinfect the buses and we do all our protocols, parents do feel more comfortable dropping kids off in person in their own cars. However, with that being said, we are going to be adding a couple of stops to hopefully lessen the amount of kids driving up to Emory School. That's part of it. The other thing is as I sat there this morning with City Manager Aaron France, 2 traffic engineers watching, observing, they're going to be back out for the next couple of weeks to take more data. But already it's all human error. It's all people being impatient. And Principal Lennicky's got a great plan laid out. If people would follow that plan, we'd be fine. Yes, there are cars coming through, but there are cars coming through all our communities in the same fashion. It's parents have got to follow the protocols. But they are making some recommendations already. The traffic engineer said, we can do this, this, and this. And so again, we could have all the plans laid out, but people have to follow those plans. That's the human element that we have. And so Mrs. Lennicky was given a notice by Mr. Magbu today to make sure her parents knew that we would have traffic patrol out there. And we're going to enforce, they're going to enforce what they need to enforce in order to keep our students safe. That's the hard part, because then people get upset because we're not, or we're enforcing too much. It's the first couple weeks of school. Let us get back into the routines. However, student safety is the first thing. The other thing I want to make sure everybody understands is we have reacted rather quickly. Want to give Sandra Poteet credit here. We have been looking at a crossing guard, and that place probably should have crossing guard for years. So we've been working with Sergeant Howard, I believe is his name. Shadow, and from the Bonaparte Police Department to look at a crossing guard up at Emory as well. So in the first 4 days, we've noticed, we've listened, and we've reacted. And so we should have a plan in the next 3 to 4 weeks after they do the study, and we would be making further recommendations for that site. And Mr. Magwood has also spoken to the traffic engineers about Whitaker School, which also has a couple of issues there as well. So we'll be working with the city again, great partnerships that we have. And we're very fortunate that they're reacting rather quickly. You know, you don't get that in every city. But I want to thank them and the officials that came out. And then lastly, I do want to thank our district office staff here at the district office, including our classified, the managers that are sitting here today. They have worked all summer long to be ready for the kickoff, right? And I think we kicked off well, right? And there's still a lot of work to be done, but we are well prepared in a great place to move our district forward. And that's really what it's all about, is moving our students forward and moving our district forward. So I want to give you guys a thank you. As I mentioned before, all the credit that I get, I owe it to you guys, because you guys are doing all the work, all the legwork. I'm just the guy that sits at the podium here with everybody else, right? At the dais, I should say, with everybody else. But thank you. And again, great job, everybody across the district. So thank you. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. I think the person who solves the parking problem gets a Nobel Peace Prize. I think that's one of those kind of situations. Moving on to programs and reports, district programs overview, MTSS, and district students events. Dr. Marimontes.
Yeah, here to provide that district overview is our Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Yvette Cantu.
Good evening, Board President, Board members, and all of our listeners tonight. A few years back, I had the privilege of presenting to you our first step into California's MTSS, or multi-tier systems of support framework. That presentation focused in on our why, or establishing the foundation for the framework. Tonight, I'd like to increase that first presentation with not just what the foundation is, but how we have begun to specifically implement the foundation so that our students can increase their academic success and we reach our goal of all students being able to reach grade level or beyond academic skills. Again, the foundation or the framework is one that responds to the whole child. And there are domains and features that at our first opportunity to present to you, we were beginning to understand. And they've actually been revised. So you will see the word inclusive through all the domains and features. We now understand that inclusivity means that our students see themselves in our curriculum. They are represented in the information that we give, and they go beyond what they know into grade level and beyond expectations. The framework responds to both academic achievement as well as social, emotional, behavior, and now mental health. We look at that first domain, inclusive academic instruction. It is a direct response to making sure that all of our students have the same access to rigorous academic program. Inclusive behavior, we've been responding to with our Pbis and students knowing their expectations for how to behave in all arenas of school. And now this inclusive, transformative SEL, instruction and mental health support, is one that's been redefined. Social emotional learning response as to how we manage ourselves and how we manage the world around us, and how we develop skills and competencies so that we can actually reach the rigor of instruction. And that mental health has to do with awareness, prevention, and intervention for students who have a diagnosis or who have a predisposition to needing support. As you look down at those green areas, leadership, integrated supports, family and community engagement, inclusive practices. When we first presented this, we were getting to know the district's point as to how we would respond to this area. Tonight, I'd like to actually give some specifics as to what we are doing in each of these areas that's making a difference in system of responding to academic needs and social, emotional, and mental health of our students.
That's on. Thank you. Strong leadership. At our school sites, we are now working to expand the leadership from site principal and admin to all members of the community acting as leaders. So we have enacted a guiding coalition and all the school sites. This guiding coalition is part of the decision-making for both academics, behavior, and mental health for the students and the community. Next, we have our professional learning communities, problem-solving teams. Beyond that guiding coalition, which is leadership, we have our CAS team, which is our intervention support, and we're also looking at our grade level and our department teams as decision-makings around instruction. And then we have included academic and wellness and mental health teams as well. Our integrated supports is one around equity and access. We want to make sure that all students have access to not only the academic program, but the behavior supports as well as the extracurricular activities. And again, we want to make sure that we have voices, not just the principal or the admin leadership, but our teachers and support staff also have a voice in creating full balanced programs. What is very critical that our district, I have to say, has really stepped up in hearing that stakeholder voice and using it to guide and make decisions around curriculum and instruction. So as you can see, we're providing leadership for our community members, such as LCAP, School Site Council, ELAC, and DLAC. But we're not just pulling them together to meet and tell them information. We're actually listening to what they feel is most valuable for adding to our instructional programs. Then we also want to make sure that our parents feel valued by having specific education that they've asked for that will help them support their students at home and in the schools. And again, multiple interests of values. What is it that our families like to see our students most engaged in extracurricular activities, as well as academic supports? And then the inclusive practices. Multiple initiatives are now being identified around mental health, also around our academics, and innovative strategies. And we also want to expand these processes and programs across our district, so all students have access to extracurricular activities, tutoring, as well as increased learning opportunities during the school day. So listed here are some of the more specific things that we are doing in each of these features and domain areas. Next slide. When we first started working with the continuum of support, we talked about tiered interventions. If you know anything about education, terms are only good for a short time. So when we used to say tiered support, we're now talking about a continuum of support, so that anywhere along the line of students' academic and social, emotional, and mental health, we have a variety of things across every stage or every tier that students have access to. Now, you know, the first we say is all students are universal access. And so this chart here is showing that we have universal supports for all students, both academic and social emotional. When we first started out with the framework, we were really heavy mostly on some academics around reading per se, and mostly at the elementary. We are now expanding our universal access to include assessments, both for academics and social emotional. We are also looking at our first delivery, first best instruction, and how we are differentiating for small groups, whole group, and even individual students at that first tier. So you can see that we're really working on knowing what our students know and making sure we're responding so we have a path of progression. Supplemental supports are for some students. We know from our diagnostic measures, iReady in academics, Panorama and SEL, that we can start off the year already grouping our students and meeting their needs in both academics and behavior and social emotional. And then we have the needs for few students, which is more intensive, really working with small groups, with our specialists, being able to identify both academic students that are more than 2 years below and doing intensive interventions, as well as for our social and emotional needs of our students, identifying them through our panorama, social and emotional assessments, and being able to target their support as well. I'm happy to announce that in both academics, behavior, and social, emotional, and mental health, we've increased our curriculum for working with students at these 3 levels. At the all level, universal, we want to make sure that our students, both in language arts and math, have small group instruction, that it's targeted for whole group grade level as well as small group. For our supplemental support, we've purchased additional curriculum that can be used by the classroom teacher or for during tutoring, and now with our academy teachers at the elementary level. At the intensive supports, we purchased some materials for reading for students who are 2 years or more below grade level at the elementary, and our academic, our support teachers, academy support teachers will be doing small intensive groups. At the middle school, we've carved out time for our tutorials, which will support our students at the academic level as well. Next slide. In order to make our framework come alive, we need to have a system of decision-making. We say that we are student-centered but data-informed. So with the support of our consultants, Dr. Cruz from Solution Tree, we've begun to use a system called professional learning communities. You don't act as one, you become one. So over the last 2 years and now our 3rd year, we've been really concentrating on being able to identify what we want our students to know through our common core standards and for social and emotional competencies. Next, we look at our screeners to determine what our students do know so that we can plan instruction based on their next steps needs. This year, with the support of our Natalie Vinda, we are really going to focus in on formative assessments, what our students are doing right in front of us, what we know they know, and moving to the next level. Then next, we're looking at evidence-based instruction, using the best practices that have been proven to be effective with our students. And then finally, quick analysis of formative assessments and responding. What do we do when students know the skills we're taught? What do we do if they have not shown mastery at the level of expectations? Teachers are involved in the cycle of inquiry at their weekly meetings. Our goal is to make sure that students move through this, and that is the task of having a guiding coalition at each site. The guiding coalition will support, monitor the progress of this cycle at grade levels or department levels, and then respond to the needs of the teachers so they can continue this cycle. Teachers will know from their academic diagnostic levels of iReady and their SEL panorama assessments and screeners what students need at every level of support. Our goal is then to continually monitor student progress and respond quickly when we see them progressing or when we see that the progress is not as great as we would like. Next slide. We do have some universal access, prevention, and awareness at all levels, both academic and social and emotional. But because we know that our students have been out during these times of COVID and they're coming back to us, having dynamics changed in the home, dynamics changed in the school, we want to really put a spotlight on what we're doing to support the mental health of our students, as well as faculties and community members. So now let's take a look at what we're doing at that first level of universal access, what we have for all students. We start off with a sense of belonging, connecting our students to our school sites. It's as simple as schools determining how they will respond to students first time they see them in the morning, how they will build relations throughout the day, and how they will make sure that students have a sense of fairness, participation, and advancement. Again, our students feeling like they're in a trusted, safe environment where they have equal access to the best that we have to offer. Next is that social and emotional competencies. We've identified some areas of growth for our students that not only will help them manage themselves and deal with issues, but will also have a positive impact on academics. These competencies are around self-management, being able to make decisions, being able to have a growth mindset, and being able to deal with the rigors of academics. We have these in tiered supports, and we've allocated time both at the elementary and middle school to focus on developing these competencies. Next is our school-wide PBIS, and we have award-winning PBIS structures at each of our school sites. At this time of the year, we are taking time to make sure we teach our students all expectations for behaviors in every realm of the school site, positively reinforcing when we see them doing the right thing, and then acknowledging their efforts at all levels. And what we've added, talk about listening to our stakeholders. Our parents last year told us that it wasn't enough for our students just to learn to deal with issues and be flexible and have perseverance, but part of their mental health and their wellness was that connection with their mind and body. And so we have working with our partners, making sure that we have a solid movement, both purposeful and teaching skill development for all of our students, really working on our students having a healthy lifestyle. So this is our prevention and awareness components that are in place. Next slide. Part of our PLC is continuous improvement. So we're looking to see how we can build upon the foundation that we've set with those first 4 components we talked about. This year, we will be working on trauma-informed instruction and environments. This will take a really strong look at supporting our students who have felt trauma, especially due to COVID, loss that they've never seen or experienced before. Being able to change those family dynamics that would allow things to be a little bit different at home that we need to now know and compensate in the school. Trauma-informed is around building trust, safe environments, collaborating with our families and our staff so that we know what students are going through that we can support in class. And then again, voice and choice. I was really excited to see this in the research as we started this initiative a few years ago. And that's one of the initiatives that we're continuing to integrate as we move forward. Voice and choice is around hearing students in the classroom, allowing their voice in making decisions, and all the way up to leadership in the classroom. Next, we heard from our staff, teachers, as well as our administrators, that although we have access through Panorama from lessons that we can implement that matches our data, our staff really wanted to have a cohesive program for developing these social emotional competencies. And so our counselors that we had last year did a wonderful job really investing time in studying the most critical, influential curriculum that would help both academics as social emotional. And they suggested the curriculum Character Strong. So we'll be implementing that across our district this year. Next is restorative practices. We've had several of our administrators and teachers at the middle school go through restorative practice training. We now know that this is an area that we need to implement strongly, effectively, and with fidelity at all levels. As you can see through the triangle here, restorative practices is both part of academic and behavior routines and practices that allow students to build strong community where they rely on each other, they trust each other. Next, it's how to help those students who need intervention around being part of community. And then at the top, we will have, again, support for those students who break that trust and need consequences, and then how to bring them back into the community and restore that trust. So we'll be working on these 3 areas: trauma-informed instruction, having a curriculum that's consistently implemented at all grade levels, building character and social emotional needs. And I have to say, this is a partner we already have with our Panorama lessons. And then finally, using restorative practices as prevention, intervention, and restoring and bringing students back after a consequence is needed, back into the community as a whole. Finally, I'd like to put the spotlight on some of the signatures programs that we already have in place that have really, as our board president said, has put us on the map in the mental health world. We have a strong partnership with OCDE, who is really seeing that the funding that the state has put aside for mental health is being used effectively at the school site. And I'd like to also thank Dr. Simonovsky for her efforts in making sure that we have a strong crisis intervention team that we don't have to use, which is our goal, right? And we will have less of these crisis interventions if we really use some of these signature programs that are in place. So both our middle schools have the wellness centers. They're beautiful spaces, but it's not just a beautiful place to come to. It's equipped with our counselors, both that we have staff, and with information, with activities that allow our students to regain their composures, to be able to re-engage in the classroom. But I have to say these spaces aren't just for our children, they're also for our staff members. We know that SEL is not just for students, but we have the responsibility of making sure that the health of our staff, both our teaching faculty and our support staff, stay strong as well. So we're very proud of our CHALK partnership as well as our OCDE mental health grant partners for having our wellness centers. Next are Boys and Girls Clubs. It was one of those things of, necessity is the mother of invention. The Boys and Girls Clubs has been part of our community for a very long time. But we realized some of our most vulnerable students needed to have a house, a safe place, a haven that they can go to during instruction, during distance learning, and extended instruction time after school. This program continued during the summer where we had that safe haven for our students, and it will continue during the school year as well. And then our Care Solace program, you can find that on our website. It's one that is for students, for their families, and for our staff, where they can go find support for whatever support they need for mental health. And it's available free of cost. And it's also one that we have so great support with directing our students and our families through our counselors, or they can access on their own through our website. And then finally, I think one of the greatest joys that we have is our wellness website. For it was one of those opportunities to listen to our stakeholders. Our parents said that our most capable kids academically were having trouble during COVID times. Our most vulnerable students continue to need support outside of the instructional time. So if you look on our wellness site, that's in support with our St. Jude grant and all of our wellness initiatives, there's a variety of resources that students can take advantage of and families. There's activities for them to engage in, and it's a fun place to actually go and to expand not only your mental health, but also your physical activity as well. So we've got quite a few activities and programs that are definitely putting us on the map. We know that full inclusion, next slide, please. Full inclusion or connectedness and a sense of belonging has to be part of our entire community. So this year we will be having a host of special events that are already calendared. These are those events that tap into the passion of our students, that allow them to shine and be part of an extended learning community outside of their school, but an entire district. So here we have our calendar already set. We'll have, starting off in October, Principal for the Day, which we will focus in on the women leadership in our city so that they can not only see what our wonderful instruction is in our class, but our students can also see what it's like when women are part of our leadership in our city and in our state. We're going to tap into, again, that mind and body with moving into our Superintendent's Cup with soccer. Our GATE students will have 2 Saturday events. We're going to bring in our kindergartens. We're all going to be celebrating Kindness Month, but we'll bring our kindergartens to capture that on film with photos show. And then academically, we're moving back into our spelling bee. And then we also want to look at the arts. We'll be focusing on our city art show. Our middle schools will have our STEM programs activities. We'll have choir, and as well as looking at celebrating our most vulnerable and our happy students in some of our specialized programs. We'll bring back our robotics competition we had a few years ago, and then we'll add a new competition, which is dance for our international dance for all of our third graders. We want to make sure that our students build connections and a sense of belonging in their schools and in the larger community with our entire district and city. Next slide. And finally, our MTS program, especially around mental health, is being supported by increasing our specialized service providers for both wellness and our mental health. I think it's unprecedented the number of support that we are now providing for our students. We have school nurses, healthcare aides, school psychologists, counselors, and again, we have greater access because of the money specifically designed at each school district for COVID-related or from our grants that we've secured. So our counselors are being supported with our COVID funds. We're continuing with our outreach concern counselors at all school sites. And I should say we have counselors at all school sites as well. We have transitional coaches, which will take on some of the traditional social workers by a grant that Dr. Simonowski secured for 5 of our schools. Our SRO officers were returning. We have playwork support, which will help our students to be able to manage both their structured and free time and develop those social and emotional skills as well as their physical prowess. And then we will continue to have, through our partnership with St. Jude, our PE and wellness TOSA, and then our middle school program specialists will support also the feeder schools around restorative practices. I have to say, even with all of these healthcare providers and wellness support providers, it is really our teachers, tier 1 and tier 2 support. They provide that sense of belonging for our students, for connectedness. They develop the skills around our Pbis and SEL, and they make sure that the students who need additional support in tier 2 and tier 3 are referred for those specialized programs. So again, we want to thank our teachers and all of our sports providers for making sure that, in our last slide, it's true, all means all. We have a strong support for academics as well as behavior and mental health. This concludes my report. Are there any questions at this time?
I just wanted, on page 8, do we have dates for the final 2 events?
Let's see.
Yes, their dates
Yes.
got cut off.
Yes, sorry.
So they're set dates?
Yes,
There's
there are
some
set
dates.
dates.
And I just wanted to, for that point, the foundation this year is happy to sponsor a lot of these events. We will be working on our budget, I believe, next meeting, and just try to help, make this hand in hand. All in all, we love that these programs hit a lot of students, and so
Yes.
that was our main focus. So hopefully by next meeting, I'll know exactly what the foundation is sponsoring, but yeah, not get the dates for those.
So we really appreciate that. Yes, those activities span across the VAPA, the STEMs, and just tapping into really, and physical education tapping into what it really will help our students grow in their own passion.
And we can send you the sheet as well with the correct dates. I know we had spoken about what things the foundation could sponsor us.
Yeah.
And they would just pay for things and we would get the sizes and all that. We would work the legwork on that piece, but
Yeah.
we can definitely identify those for sure. We appreciate the partnership with the foundation as well.
Yes,
Thank you, Dr. Cantu.
thank
Actually,
you.
I just want to quick comment. I just want to highlight that I think page 7, our signature programs really touches a little bit of everything of what this model is. So it's well laid out and it's easy to digest and dissect, because the wellness center touches a little bit. It's for everybody. It's just not for a specific
Mhm.
group. So I like how those signature programs are going to be benefiting everybody. The Boys and Girls Club, I mean, we have the SRO officers. They're the ones that help us find these families and give them that safe haven, and we can resource them out to a program like that. So that's nice to have. And the wellness website, it benefits the community as well. So
Yes.
it touches a little bit of everything for everybody. So I just want to just say it's well laid out, and thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Great job, team. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, very thoughtful and well planned out. Appreciate that. Much needed. Next item, 45-day budget revise, Dr. Miramontes.
Yeah, here to talk about the 45-day revise, our Chief Financial Officer, Sandra Poteet.
Good evening, Dr. Miramontes and board and community members. Just a quick update on our budget for the year as required for if there's been changes that affect our budget from the adopted budget from the time that we adopted ours and when the state adopted theirs. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So the calendar for the year, we don't always have a 45-day. There's not a lot that changed, but we thought we'd go ahead and mention what has changed, as well as since school started, give it a snapshot of enrollment and where we are. So next slide, please. So budget development is enrollment, revenue, and expenditures. Those are our three components, and we're going to touch on each of those tonight. So next slide. Our enrollment numbers. So the orange is what we had last year for enrollment, 4158. We projected a decline of down to 4,093. However, our head counts on Friday was 3,772. Now I anticipate that those numbers will go up because as we are solidifying head counts versus system counts, as we finalize what's in the system and we get all those students who have left our area and we pull those out of the system, I think we'll see some growth here, but we are not going to get to a number to match our enrollment. That's highly unlikely. So I do anticipate there will be some decline greater than what we had projected. We'll have better numbers when we come back. When we do the unaudited actuals, we can touch on those one more time and show you where we are at that point, which will be in a couple of weeks. And then we did go ahead and show by grade level. There's not any grade level that actually met the mark of projection versus head counts. We're just in it. So it's not one grade. It's not one group. It's across the board. We're just declining in enrollment. And talking to my business partners in the other districts, this is common across the county. Everybody is declining in Orange County right now. So next slide. So as far as revenue changes, there are no revenue changes at this time that we're going to put into the budget. The budgeted COLA matched what the state adopted for a COLA, so we don't have any change in the COLA. But if we go to the next slide, the reason there are new programs, but they're not in the budget. So I'll touch on those new programs. The reason they're not budgeted yet is we don't have the corresponding expenditures. Each one of these is tied to a specific purpose. They're not dollars that can be used for any expense that the district chooses. They each have a requirement of what they must be spent on. So we have a concentration grant increase. It has to be aligned to our LCAP. It's impacted by our duplicated pupil count, and it's approximately $1.3 million. Educator Effectiveness Block Grant, it's for professional development. The amount is unknown and it's one-time funding. So once we know that amount, we'll be able to build a program, but it's too early yet. They haven't released what we're getting. Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, not to be confused with Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant. Two different things. I wish they'd have found a different title for it, but it's very similar. This is for before school and after school to make a 9-hour instructional day for students, a 9-hour student day. It's to coordinate and conform to our ACES program. So it's supposed to be very similar to ACES and coordinate with it. It's also based on unduplicated pupil counts, and it's approximately 1.7 million for this year.
Mrs. Poteet, does it also extend the school year, correct?
Yes, it also requires that we have I believe it's 30 days of instruction beyond the regular school day. And those 30 days can be a combination of summer, days during break, or even a Saturday school, but that does require an additional 30 days of instruction to be offered as well. And then the final grant is the Special Ed Early Intervention Preschool Grant. That is ongoing funding for infants, toddlers, preschoolers birth to 5. We don't know how much that is yet, and that it will be directed to special ed programs. So as I said, these are new programs which are generating new dollars. They're not able to be put in the budget because we just don't have enough information yet. So as we get there, we'll be able to add them in. So we will see budget changes throughout the year. We can go to the next slide. So the next component of our budget is expenditures. And the only thing that changed in how we addressed is the unemployment insurance at the, near the bottom. I've highlighted it in blue. It went to 1.23% is what we had anticipated for this year. It went down to 0.50%. But if you recall, this started at 0.05 and had been at 0.05 since 2014. So nobody had anticipated that this would be going up. And so it made this large jump to 1.23. The state backfilled that with the unemployment agency and brought our rate down to 0.5%. So that's the expenditure adjustment that you'll see in the next slides as we go through the budget. So next page, please. So as I said, the revenue hasn't changed. So we anticipate a total of 48.9 million in unrestricted, just over 14 million in restricted, for a total of just shy of 63 million for our revenue for next year. And go to the next slide. Our expenditures, as you can see, I highlighted in blue the change. So we had a reduction in the unemployment insurance for unrestricted side. It brings us down 174,000. For the restricted side, approximately 67,000. So a total reduction in expenditures of 241,000. So that still leaves us with large expenditures, a total of fund of being $62.9 million in expenditures for the year. We can go to the next slide, please. So that expenditure change falls through it and changes our net increase to the fund balance. And then we get and then our ending fund balance. So our ending fund balance has increased by that $270,000 that we're getting for additional unemployment insurance that the state is funding. And so we'll look at that as we bring back unaudited actuals, which will be at the September 13th board meeting. We'll be bringing those back to look at where we actually ended for this year and how that impacts our budget going forward. So next slide. Are there any other questions about the changes in the budget?
I have a question. So how much do we get for a student?
A little over 10,000.
So if we're looking at a 300 student difference roughly. So I'm bad at math, supposed to be a math person. What is
A
that?
lot of money.
So just to clarify, then we're in positive right now, but with anticipation of another drop as big as it was, it's probably less next year. I mean, you can't predict, but
Mrs. Poti, can you talk about the double whammy that we're going to get hit in 2 years with the, as
Absolutely.
we're being funded off of last year's ADA? And so in a couple of years, like for one district, when we were talking with the North Orange County, one district locally, their projections are lower than they anticipated, but they're also going to have a drop in a couple of years because we're being funded off of last year's ADA, right? So in 2 years, the difference in their budget is $14 million. So in a $68 million budget, $14 million in a couple of years, they're just going to drop. It's going to be a huge hit to their budget. We started talking about what we need to be looking at some of those pieces as well. You want to elaborate on that piece? Sarah?
Absolutely. So this year's budget is being funded on last year's, which typically you're funded on the greater of current or prior. However, last year's budget, the state allowed you not to collect ADA, but actually carry forward your prior year ADA as your ADA for the year. So in 21-22, we're actually being funded on 1920s students. So we've got a 2-year grace. So what will happen is over the next years, we're going to have this large dip. We talked about that cliff where we're getting this nice, increase in money this year, and then it's going to significantly drop because as our enrollment drops, we will definitely be dropping off as we go through. So there is going to be a significant drop, and we will end up, if this holds true, close to these numbers, we will be looking at deficit spending in the next 2 years. There's just not going to, it's going to be very difficult to avoid that. And as we saw earlier, a lot of the services we're providing are coming from grants. This one-time funding that we've been getting. So on top of all of these pieces of what we're going to lose in our regular funding, that grant funding will be dropping off simultaneously. So we're probably going to feel it much more than we would. I mean, we know it's going to hurt as we have deficit spending and we need to make tough choices. Add on to that we're going to lose their services that are grant funded at the same time. It's going to feel a very significant change.
Correct. And this is why it was so important to have an MOU with CSEA, for example, that classified the additional classified funding for classified positions, but in lieu of hiring more classified staff members, we increase the hours of the current staff members that we have, because it's wonderful. And as I mentioned at the leadership retreat, when the money's here, we'll use it. This money was given to us to support language arts and mathematics. And in lieu of hiring more people for 2 and 3 hours, we increased the hours of our classified staff members, our aides specifically, but it's a 1-year thing. Right? So we've got 1 year to really make the push. And so we're going to be doing that this year. I want to give our HR department and our negotiations team and CSA was a willing partner, but in a year that's going to drop off. In a couple of years, there are a couple of other services that may drop off. So these new programs that Mrs. Poti has spoken about, the 4 new ones, we need to take advantage of them. And they're an opportunity for us to start. We definitely want to participate, that's for sure. It's money that's coming to our community. And it's money that our students and our families could utilize in services. So, we want to prepare for these dollars that are coming in. The Educator Effectiveness Grant, we knew that was coming, but nobody has given us a dollar amount yet. We're still waiting to see what happens there, right? And by providing these additional services, again, we've had a couple of years where we haven't had students here. These additional services will definitely close the gap that we have out there. So I am looking forward to getting this started. I know that we're in the middle of FPM. We rolled the dice and we're first in line. Once we get over the FPM boat, we'll start working on this next piece, but we will need additional support staff members to sort of get this thing rolling. And it's really important for us to take advantage of this money, because I don't want to not take advantage of it in the year. Somebody might say from legislators might say, well, you didn't use it, so you lose it. So anybody that had it can continue doing it. I mean, they make up rules all the time. All right, so we have to take advantage of the opportunities that are here now.
Yeah, so it's like 200,000 plus right now, could go to a potential minus 3.5 million. Just making up numbers, but close.
You're good
Okay.
at math.
No, I'm not good at math.
You must
Just,
be a math teacher, huh?
yeah, just throwing it out there. But that's just very clear to put out there, because I think people think, wait, you have everything status quo and you're good, but it's not that good. We're gonna feel it. It will hurt next year, I think it seems like.
And I think again, we've done everything. You have done everything. We have done everything we can. But the decline in enrollment is one of those pieces. You don't have the students. That's what generates income. So we'll keep working on that piece there. But I do want to thank Mrs. Poti and her staff for putting this together. And we'll see her back in a few weeks
Yes,
for the unaudited actuals,
correct.
which will give us a clearer picture of our enrollment numbers as well.
I just have one more question.
Yep.
Does the recall affect any of the money that we still do not know, like the programs that are under construction?
Not that I'm aware of. These have already been put into law. These were part of the budget that was signed and approved at the state level. So that shouldn't have any impact unless they can always change the laws. But at this point, they are in law and anticipated to be funded.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You guys need to have more babies.
Thank
Get on. We need more kids.
Thank you. Moving on to personnel services staffing snapshot. Dr.
Sure, our
Ramonte.
trifecta presentation tonight will be led by our Chief Personnel Officer and his team. I'll turn it over to Mr. Russell Harrison.
President Chong, members of the governing board, Dr. Miramontes, and guests, thank you for this opportunity to highlight some of the work being done in personnel services over this past year. I'm joined this evening and proud to be joined by other stellar members of the personnel services team. Specifically, we're going to be focusing this evening on staffing, and I'd like to highlight Tony Traster, Michelle Stein, and Kara Mesa, who have been stellar in the work that has been going on recently. If you haven't already had an opportunity to look at our personnel action report for this evening, the PAR, you will see by the length of it, the lengthy hours that have been going in this department. And I really wanted to appreciate and recognize all of their diligence in this. So if you see back there may be some bloodshot eyes and some Red Bull on the desks, but we're getting it done. Next slide, please. There's a lot of information that could be shared. I know you have it here in a presentation in front of you, but I'd rather just focus on highlighting on a few points here. As we take a look at recruitment, a lot has been going on in the realm of certificated and classified job postings over the course of the past year. But if I can draw your attention to the second bullet point, 1,200 applications were received this last year alone. It really shows that Buena Park is a desired location to come to work. Not only that, during our interview process, we oftentimes hear our candidates talk about their reasons for wanting to come here, the reasons that they put their application in for the Buena Park School District. And so it's with great pride that we work here and recognize that others see the great things that we're doing and want to join this team. Tonight's personnel action report, as mentioned, is a testimony of the work being put in. And I'm going to go ahead and have Tony share just a little bit about the steps that are involved in recruitment.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Just to kind of give you a little bit of insight on what happens during the process of a recruitment, I'm just kind of run through real quickly what that looks like. So every position is required to post for a minimum of 5 days. During that 5-day posting period, we line up dates for screening, meaning does the candidate meet the minimum qualifications of the job description? And for certificated staff, this includes whether or not they meet the credentialing requirements for their position. From there, we go to testing. If it's a classified position, all of our union CSEA positions do require testing to be done. So all applicants must pass that test in order to move forward to the next process, which is interviewing. We are required to give the unions at least 5 days advance notice of the panel members, the request for panel members to sit on the interview. During that time, we have to prepare interview packets for each one of those panel members and get them prepared to see the candidates that are about to be in front of them. Once interviews are completed, the selected applicants must be brought in for processing, which includes verifying the applicant's eligibility to work in the U.S., completion of all hiring documents, as well as sending the applicants out for fingerprinting and waiting for those fingerprints to come back so that they can be cleared and be set up with a start date, put on a PAR, and built into our employee database system. So recruitments based on all of that can take anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks, sometimes longer, depending on the applicant pool that's provided and whether or not those applicants meet the expectations of our requirements for employment.
Next slide, please. The mark of a good district is not only who we attract and hire into the organization, but also in how we cultivate the skills of our current employees until they're ready to take their next step forward. And what you'll see on this slide is some of the evidence of our efforts to seek the talent from within our own organization. We congratulate the promoted employees on this slide, 12 classified, 5 certificated, and a number of substitutes who have also demonstrated their quality in their positions in coming aboard to find new and enriching ways to support students, families, and staff. Next slide. The work of human resources cannot be done alone, and we truly appreciate the relationships that have been fostered with the leadership of both of our associations, CSEA, Chapter 569, and BPTA. We have opened up the lines of communication, and we're regularly on our cell phones together to resolve employee matters. I've been on my cell phone with both Gil and Tim this evening during the board meeting as we've been talking, and I'm surprised over the course of time that they haven't blocked my numbers, but they also feel free. They also feel free to call anytime in the evenings or weekend when they have an employee concern. And so we truly appreciate those open lines of communication that have been created. We thank them for picking the proper panel members when we have job interviews that are going on, because we want people who are sitting and looking based on the experience they've had, they know what to look for in candidates. We appreciate the fact that if you see there, over 60 meetings this past year. It was surprising to me to see how many we have had. And every single one of those meetings, the agendas have listed as the first bullet point, COVID safety and PPE. And I think together we've helped our employees to feel that their safety has been at the forefront. So moving on, the final thing that I'd like to emphasize here is just their flexibility, especially recently, helping us to get people into the places where they're needed right now for the circumstances that we're in. I know that Tony wanted to also mention panel members.
I wanted to just make sure I take a moment to give thanks to all the people that have helped us out with our recruitment. Successful recruitments take a lot of time and coordination. That being said, we need to thank those employees who've taken time from their busy days, both during their workday as well as during the summer break, to come and sit down and help us with screening applications, sitting on panels. I especially want to thank Michelle Stein and Kara Mesa because they make that process look flawless. They make sure that that recruitment process is streamlined and as professional as possible. And I'm really not certain how they do that. They just make it happen.
Next slide, please. So once you get the right team members on the bus, what comes next? Our employees continue to work hard. They go above and beyond. And I know that the names up here were also already recognized in the spring, but it's worth mentioning that these folks are just doing a stellar job, as are their peers. So a big congratulations to our Teachers of the Year and Classified Employees of the Year this past year. Next slide. In addition, with an enrollment of approximately 4,000, we might be considered to be a smaller district, but we are gaining recognition broadly across the county and across the region with accolades, awards, and grants that would challenge any district 4 times our size. I want to recognize that we've got teachers on this list who have moved on, not just from our level, but onto the Orange County Teacher of the Year finalists last year. And we're wishing all the best for Christina Walsh, who will be promoted forward as a semifinalist, hopefully moving on to finalist as well. Counselors that have received awards for going above and beyond in after-school services. Principals and our own superintendent who are being recognized for the leadership that they bring to their site and to the district. Disproportionality is often an unfavorable term, but when a smaller district like Buena Park happens to receive a higher number of awards than many of its larger neighbors, I think that's a reason to celebrate. Next slide. While this evening's presentation focused primarily on staffing, there are a plethora of other services that flow from our office to support our certificated, classified, and management staff. You see some of those here. And recently, a lot of time being spent specifically in the area of contact tracing, making sure that we're following up and we're keeping our folks as safe as possible. That is multifaceted. We thank our health clerks. We thank our home community liaisons. We thank our school nurses. I'd especially like to thank Dr. Elsie Simonovsky and the work that she has been doing with these various teams in making sure that things are going on. Dr. Simonovsky's program has fallen under Personnel Services recently, and I've been glad to have her aboard. The work that we've been doing together has been making a real difference for our families. I know she will have an opportunity at a later time this year to share more about what's happening in the realm of school and community services. But just wanted to very much take the time to thank her because some of the safety that we feel in our district at this time is thanks in large part to Elsie and also the communication that she puts together for our families.
And just to add, personnel is a go-to department. If you need anything, whether it's our area or not, you can always feel free to call us, reach out to us, and we will get you to where you need to go if it's not us. We're always happy to assist, guide, and support. If we can't resolve the issue, we will get you to the place that can. And it only makes sense that we have slowly moved away from being known as human resources to becoming personnel services since we are here to serve. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And we would like to just take a moment. We're going to bring out some flowers to thank these folks for their amazing work above and beyond. Can I have both of you come on up? Thank you, Michelle and Kara. For the many extra hours put in, I'm sure that, you know, our candidates love hearing you call when you call to offer them a position. And they appreciate the kind, friendly nature that these two provide as they come on board. We really hope that it's a positive experience, not only at the interview table, that folks leave whether they get the job or not. We encourage smiling at the table so that they leave and want to apply to us again in the future. And as they come aboard, it's really these two ladies that do an amazing job of making them feel immediately welcome as members of the Buena Park School District family. So thank you again. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
team.
It's a hard job. I mean, sometimes you get the people thankful because they get a job and you get people angry at you. It's a hard position. Thank you guys for what you do. Moving on to action calendar. Inter-district transfer request 2122 MOSCK. It is recommended the governing board uphold the denial. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Ms. Ahmad. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Castaneda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Inter-district transfer request 2122 MAEIK. It is recommended the governing board uphold the denial. Do I have a motion?
No motion.
Thank you, Ms. Shedd. Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes 5-0. Inter-district transfer request 2122 KIMOTK, recommended that the governing board uphold the denial. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Shedd. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Public employee appointment, Daniel Arredondo, Assistant Principal, Buena Park Middle School, effective August 13th, 2021, ratification. Dr. Miramontes.
Yeah, I'd like to turn this over to Mr. Harris, who will introduce Daniel Arredondo. Mr. Harrison?
President and members of the board, we bring before you a ratified recommendation for an appointment.
Assistant Principal of the Buena Park Middle School, Mr. Daniel Arredondo. Daniel has demonstrated a long-standing passion for supporting students that require a little extra assistance and guidance. While working his way through a Bachelor's of Sociology, a Pbis credential, and a Master's in Guidance and School Counseling at Cal State University Fullerton, he worked alongside teachers for 6 years in Anaheim as a junior high instructional assistant in RSP, where he was recognized as Instructional Assistant of the Year in 2007. After completing his counseling internships in 2008, Daniel hopped into the classroom as a summer school teacher, and since then has served as a school counselor in Anaheim and ABC Unified. In this role, Daniel regularly collaborates with teachers to keep students on track, both behaviorally and academically, utilizing conferencing and restorative justice to help students to navigate their decisions. He's gone above and beyond to help connect families, especially those that need language support in migrant education, to figure out the A to G requirements to develop their path for college and university success. Besides his desire to ignite the passion in his students for college and career, Daniel enjoys time with his wife and 3 kids. Considering his own time spent in sports, from track and field to water polo, wrestling, kickboxing, and football, he is likely to inspire a number of students to keep their GPA up high enough to pursue their own athletic goals as well. Having personally been on the campus at lunch these last 2 days at Buena Park Middle School, I've been able to firsthand see how he's been able to connect with students, making me all the more pleased for this recommendation to the board.
We're asking the board for approval of the appointment of Mr. Daniel Arredondo for the assistant principal at Buena Park Middle School.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Fritz. Ooh, people fighting for it. Ms. Castaneda, I heard you first. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Welcome aboard. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Dr. Miramontes and board, I want to thank you for giving me the honor and the privilege to work with Buena Park School District, and I look forward to making a big impact, not just with the students, but with the staff, families, and communities.
Thank you, Mr. Arredondo. Welcome aboard.
Welcome to the family. I like it. Family theme constantly coming up. Love it. Moving on. Approval of revised psychologist salary schedule. Dr. Miramontes.
Yeah, the exhibit represents a clerical correction regarding the number of annual days of service to school psychologists. The BPTA contract indicates psychologists work 11 additional days, longer than a teacher calendar at 185. So the site calendar has been corrected to reflect that of 196 of the service year. So we're asking the board to accept the salary.
Thank you. Do I have a
Calendar.
motion?
No motion.
Thank you, Ms. Shedd. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fritos. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Moving on, approval of revised classified management salary schedule. Deputy Mayor Montes.
Yeah, with the approval of the governing board of the job description, with the approval by the governing board of the job description for transportation safety manager, this newly titled position needs to be added to the salary schedule in order for payroll at OCDE to recognize and compensate the manager at the appropriate level.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Ms. Castaneda. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Ahmad. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Approval of superintendent's employment contract amendment. Dr. Mayor Montes.
It's noted there in the agenda, extension of the contract.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Furdos. Thank you, Ms. Shed. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Moving on to approval to increase the contract amount due to change orders for bid number 10-2021-06-21-01 Buena Park Middle School asphalt repair storm drain line reroute awarded to Universal Asphalt Company. Dr. Mayor Montes.
Yeah, this is a change order for less than about $8,000, including proper storm drainage at Buena Park Middle School to prevent us from flooding as we did. Was it 4 years ago when your son went there?
Yeah.
4 years ago? Correct. Our classroom.
Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Ms. Cassidy. Thank you, Ms. Shed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0. Moving on, approval of sale or disposal of surplus technology items. Dr. Mayor Montes.
These are obsolete and old technology items that we have. We're ready to e-waste them.
Yeah, almost. I was like, I think we can vote on this. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Frutos. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Ahmad. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. And approval to purchase hardware, software, accessories, installation services, professional services, and warranty support from Ahead Inc., DBA Covarus Inc., the State of California statewide contract enterprise technology. Dr. Mayor Montes.
Yeah, the approval of this contract will allow the district to purchase Dell EMC server and infrastructure equipment at a discounted price, as noted by the action item.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Ms. Ahmad. Thank you, Ms. Shed. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion passes 5-0. Moving on to discussion calendar, board policy adoption, review, revision, deletion for BP 5113.1 chronic absence and truancy, as well as the BP 5113.12 district school attendance review board. Dr. Mayor Montes.
Yeah, so we have two board policies that we need to update. As you're well aware, last year COVID really threw everybody for a wrench. And so it was hard to track students, whether they were engaged, present, here, there, or anywhere. And so we'll have a discussion today about the updated chronic absent truancy, and then also the school attendance review board, and that will be led by Dr. Simonowski. Dr. Simonowski.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Chong, Board Clerk, Mr. Frutos, members of the Board of Education, Superintendent Dr. Miramontes, Executive Cabinet and guest. My name is Dr. Elsie Briceño Simonowski, and I'm the proud Director of Student Community Services. On behalf of Chief Personnel Officer, Mr. Harrison, I'd like to highlight the following attendance, chronic absence and truancy, as well as the SARB procedure board policies. AB 5113.1, chronic absence and truancy. AB 2815, Chapter 829 was signed into law by Governor Brown back in 2016 and took effect on January 1st, 2017. AB 2815 added language regarding legislative intent for supervisors of attendance, updated the duties of the supervisors of attendance to reflect the shift in focus moving from truancy to chronic absenteeism, and also identified examples of the different types of support services and interventions to improve or enhance student attendance. AR 511311 also was reflective of the language in AB 2815 and also addresses the supervisor's attendance role in compiling data for the county SARB report, as well as reporting attendance data to the superintendent and or the board on an annual basis. And you may have seen those annual SARB reports that have gone to the county that we've shared with our Board of Education as well. BP 5113.12 is the district school attendance review board. And as Dr. Miramontes highlighted, I know last year was a very odd year with COVID, but we definitely are gonna excited to get back on track with SARB hearings. We did all those virtually last year. And so we're gonna go back to in-person this year, back to the Plano Park Police Department station. This one describes the role of district SARBs in addressing attendance and behavior problems once school site interventions have all been exhausted. It addresses the importance of maintaining an inventory of community resources. It also identifies community partners. So in our case last year, our community partners for this were GRIP. We had our school resource officers in attendance at every one of our SARB hearings. We had a deputy district attorney last year. This year, we just met Dr. Miramontes and Mrs. Poteet met our new deputy district attorney along with Officer Gettner, Elisa Kim, who's responsible as a DDA under truancy and community outreach. From there, these are different respective agencies would really assist our organization in highlighting how SARB and multi-tiered systems of support that you heard from Dr. Cantu earlier. So it all kind of ties together to support attendance. Focus is now becoming more of an emphasis on a proactive approach in attendance and behavior rather than a reactive approach to attendance and behavior. So the final point I want to highlight is although the SARB process has been in place in California since the 1970s, there were many places where district SARBs were not being utilized at all, or where they were not following procedures or implementing best practices. Within the last 10 years specifically, there's been a heavier focus on improving student attendance and reducing chronic absenteeism. And that focus has really contributed to the BPs that I'm sharing with you this evening and explicitly calling out the roles and the responsibilities of district SARBs to achieve those goals. So.
Any questions regarding the SARB or chronic truancy?
I don't have a question, but I was wondering if we could just get kind of like a rundown of like after how many absences, do they get the letter first and then they get, can we just get like how that goes through? Because I know it's changed so much since.
Yep, no, absolutely. And we just actually presented that at the secretary's meeting 2 weeks ago, just to kind of bring everybody back up to speed. So we partner with A2A. It was one of our companies that assist us with getting out those truancy notification letters. And so a lot of that is the kind of the 369. So the first letter, the second, the third is 369 days. What we've really done a nice job on, and I want to highlight the work of Mrs. Smock, is to get those notifications out to families and to have that first meeting with the family after that first letter notification goes out the third day. A lot of those times, those meetings are either done in person with the school or also done in regards to us doing home visits, which I'm excited to share, we did over 400 the first 2 months of school when we were going through COVID times. So those processes are 369 with the letters. Once after that, the school is then responsible for providing a SART, school attendance review team, where they would provide that meeting, providing some restorative justice, having that conversation with the family, and putting some contracts or agreements into place. If the SART is exhausted at that point, we can also do an additional home visit. But once the SART process is exhausted, then they would be referred to a SARB hearing. And that's where they would meet with us to talk about SARB. Our new deputy district attorney, Ms. Kim, is actually planning to attend every one of our SARB hearings with us this year. And we have guaranteed our SROs will be there too. Again, the intent is not to be punitive, but really what can we rally around these families once those 369 days they've been notified. The school has exhausted everything, and then us at the district level to really exhaust all resources to get kids back into school.
Well, we can provide a snapshot to the board in the Friday report of what that looks like. So after the third day, you receive a letter. After the sixth day, you get this. After the ninth day, you're meeting with the definitely can provide that snapshot for you.
Yeah, I totally felt it as soon as it started going into effect, because I guess, lots of parents were used to just taking a few days off and vacationing. And then once they got the letter, they're like, oh, hold on, now it's for real. So it's nice to see that we're.
Yeah. And we know when kids are in school, that's when they're safe, that's when they learn, and that's when we can do all the great things that you've heard from our executive cabinet this evening. My pleasure.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Simonoski.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to consent calendar. Unless a trustee has a question concerning a particular item and asks that it be withdrawn from the consent calendar, the items are approved at one time by the governing board. Ms. Amat,
I have nothing.
Ms. Shea,
Nothing.
Mr. Frutos?
Nope.
Ms. Castaneda?
I have nothing.
I have none either. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar? Thank you, Mr. Frutos, do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Ahmad. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes 5-0. Information and correspondence, major topics, 2021, 2022. Dr. Miramontes.
Yes, let me get to that last page there. I believe we've got two reports coming up. It's the special ed and the English learner report coming up on the 13th.
That's the 27th.
That's the 13th,
Yeah.
facilities moderation and the audited actual. So we'll see Mrs. Poteet here again. Hopefully with more accurate attendance numbers that come up. So thank you.
Don't bring a calculator. We'll be ready. Just kidding. Okay, then going to close session, conferences with Ramon Miramontes, Superintendent of the Buena Park School District, Russell Harrison, Chief Personnel Officer, Aaron O'Donnell, Legal Counsel. Conference with Legal Counsel, initiation of litigation, Labor Relations, Buena Park Teacher Association, Labor Relations, California School Employee Associations, Chapter 569, Labor Relations, Non-Represented Management and Confidential Contract Employees, Public Employee Discipline, Dismissal, and Release. Do I have a motion to go to closed session? Thank you, Mr. Frios. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Castaneda. All those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Going to closed session at 6:26. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
That's the mayor here. I don't know why.
Air came in here. It's freezing in here.
Right, do I have a motion to reconvening?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Frutos. Thank you, Ms. Shed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Meeting, governing board meeting reconvened at 7:53. Reporting out of closed session. In closed session, the board approved a settlement agreement providing for a resignation for employment and release of claims in exchange for a severance payment and other consideration as stated in the agreement, a copy of which is available for public inspection upon request. The roll call vote was as follows. Ms. Castaneda was aye, Mr. Frutos is aye, Ms. Shed was aye, Ms. Ahmad was aye, and Mr. Chong was aye. With no abstentions or no nos, or each board member that was present. Other than that, nothing else to report out of closed session. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Frutos. A second? Thank you, Ms. Ahmad. All those in favor? Aye, motion passed 5-0. Thank you, everyone. The closed session, meeting adjourned at 7:54.